Well, good afternoon. I'm going to call the July 31st, 2012 council meeting to order. Viva la Fiesta, a little free. We had a request, and I'd like to offer the Flower Girls to come up and help us with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could come on up to the podium right up here. You all look fabulous. So you want to look at the flag behind you, right? There's the flag. Okay. So if you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And Flower Girls, why don't you just stay up there because you're going to come back up in just 2 minutes, right? So if we could have the roll call.
Councilmember Francisco.
Here.
Hodgkiss.
Here.
House. Murillo.
Here.
Rouse. White. Mayor Schneider.
Here. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, there aren't, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So we now have public comment here, and I don't see El Presidente here just yet. So you want to... Okay, that's right. There was an accident. So maybe, Flower Girls, if you do want to take your seats, we'll do the other public comment, and then when the president comes, we'll let him speak. So not only is it Fiesta Week, but we have some visitors from our sister city of Toba, Japan. I'd like to welcome you, and Sally Hamilton, if you'd like to come up and maybe introduce those who are here, and I know some members would like to speak as well. So welcome.
Konnichiwa, Madam Mayor and
Konnichiwa.
members of the City Council. I'm happy to introduce to you today the 20th group of students from Toba, Japan. For 20 years now, we've been finding junior high students. For the last several years, it's been 4 students, 2 girls and 2 boys, and they find them also in Toba, Japan. And they come, the Japanese students come during the week of Fiesta, and they just have a wonderful time going to the Fiesta things. They went to Solvang yesterday, and they went to Michael Jackson's ranch. But they just have a feeling of being American kids. And next week, our students will go over and stay in the homes of these same students for their Japanese festival called Obon, which is kind of like Dia de los Muertos in Japan. So, and it's a time when all of the families come together, and it's a wonderful week of festival there, just like Fiesta is here. So I'd like to introduce these students and their families. The first student is Noah Zisser and his parents, Howard and Kathleen, and Jide Okumura. The student is staying with them. Thank you. And Alex Shorb and his mom, Tammy Shorb, and Kosei Terasawa. And Frances Kretschner and her mom, Charlotte Bagrante, and her brother, Miles, and their student, Eddie Nakano, and Lily Stelzer and her mother, Terry Stelzer, and their student, Mirei Terada. And the chaperones are Mickey G., who is a Montessori teacher here in Santa Barbara, and Mirabi Nakamura, and this is her 3rd time being here. She was once an exchange student in this program, then she came to go to English school, and now she's here as a chaperone. So you can see how a little touch of this often works into a lifetime connection, and that's happened with a number of our students. And now I'd like to invite Alex Shorb to say something for the group.
Thank you, Alex, for filling out a speaker slip, and you're going to have a great time in Toba. It's really quite a beautiful place. Welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Schneider and City Council members. I'm Alex Shorb, and I am one of the 4 students from Santa Barbara who were chosen to be a part of our Sister City program with Toba City in Japan. We have already had a pretty awesome time showing our new Japanese friends around Santa Barbara, and we look forward to sharing Fiesta with them. There are some cascarones out there with their names on them. Next week, we will fly to Toba City and meet their families and see how they live. I can't wait. Thanks again, and on behalf of our group, we consider it a great honor to represent Santa Barbara in Toba City, Japan.
Thank you, and congratulations on being one of the 4 students. Congratulations to all 4 of you and your families, and I wish everyone from Toba to have a spectacular time in Santa Barbara. It's a really busy week, and we look forward to seeing. I hope you enjoy Fiesta Pequeña. I know you'll be there at the mission tomorrow, so, and the mercados and everything else. So thank you for being here. You're welcome to stay as long as you like. So with that, now I see the president is in the room. El Presidente. Would you like to come on up and have some flower girls up here, back up here?
Hello, thank you, Madam Mayor and
Bienvenidos.
council members. Sorry I'm a little late, but parking here is pretty bad during Fiesta.
Wonder what causes that. I don't know.
So even I don't get special treatment. I have to go looking around. Anyway, thank you very much. We're looking forward. We're all ready to go for Fiesta. You've seen everything all set up there. Fiesta starts tomorrow, and we're very excited. We have a poster to present to you somewhere. It's for you guys, and it's the original poster from 1953. The picture is Jose Monero, who was a famous dancer at the El Paseo just across the street, and his partner, Kate Chapman. So, yeah, we're going back to a little bit of tradition this year. And we also have gift bags for all the council members.
Thank you.
How about la Viva la Fiesta, girls?
Well, the one time we let people come in to go.
The one time.
The big one too, some of our.
Come on, girls.
And over there. Thank you.
Is that everybody? Again, thank you. You've been sponsors since the very, very beginning, 1924 as it started, and we're glad to have you still with us 88 years later. We appreciate everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think I see some spirits in the back too.
We do.
Some spirits are.
Spirit of Fiesta.
You want to
and
come
our
on
2
up and say
juniors.
hello and.
Hi, everybody. I'm the 2012 Spirit of Fiesta, Sabrina Ibarra. Nice to meet you all.
Congratulations
Thank
to you.
you.
You've been dancing beautifully so far. You have to figure out how many times.
I know. I definitely will count how many. I'm sure more than 30 has to be.
We get to just wave in the parade. You actually have to dance
yeah.
all the way up. So,
Walk the
and we
whole
have
way.
2 junior spirits. Why don't you come on up?
Hi, we're the 2012 Junior Spirit of Fiesta. I'm Sadie Broida.
And I'm Jessalyn McCollum.
Great.
Viva la Fiesta.
Viva. We look forward to this week. Congratulations to you all.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And I want to thank the Flower Girls. I know they go out to bring Fiesta to those who can't come out to nursing homes and other places. And so thank you for your service. Great. All right. So the room's clearing out. Yeah, there. Thank you. Viva la Fiesta. Okay, I don't see any other public comment speaker slips. No, so we'll close public comment and move on to the consent calendar. You do have some items to read.
Item number 2, adoption of ordinance for a zoning map amendment for property located at 4151 Foothill Road, 675 Cieneguitas Road, and 681 Cieneguitas Road. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara amending Chapter 28.12 Zone Map of Title 28 of the Municipal Code pertaining to the zoning upon annexation of Assessor's Parcel Number 059-160-017 located at 4151 Foothill Road, Assessor Parcels Number 059-160-021 located at 675 Cieneguitas Road, and Assessor Parcels number 059-160-023 located at 681 Cieneguitas Road in the Hope neighborhood. And item 3, records destruction for the Airport Department. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara relating to the destruction of records held by the Airport Department and the Administration Division.
And thanks. Well, without further objection, we'll waive further reading. Is there anyone who needs to take an item off, or is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
There is, Madam Mayor.
Okay, a motion?
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Report from the Finance Committee, Mr. Francisco.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the Finance Committee met today and heard the fourth quarter fiscal 2011 investment report, and the ship is fairly steady as it goes. The only, I guess, disappointing thing is that with declining interest rates and return on our investment, that interest income is contributing a smaller and smaller share of the general fund. Alas.
Alas. Right. Thank you. And item number 10.
Item number 10, South Coast Task Force on Youth Gangs update.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Mayor and Council, good afternoon. I'm Marcelo Lopez, Assistant Administrator. Today we have a presentation from the South Coast Task Force on Youth Gangs, which was formed back in 2009 for the purpose of addressing the problem of youth gangs and youth gang violence. It's my pleasure today to introduce Saul Serrano, who will be in charge of the presentation. He is the interim coordinator. He works for the Community Action Commission, which happens to also be the host agency, the host administrative agency for the whole effort. So Mr. Serrano is going to take over at this point.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Thank you for this time and this opportunity to bring an update to all of you this afternoon. The purpose of the presentation is to provide an update on the South Coast Task Force and Youth Gang milestones and some of the work that's been happening up until today. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about the Memorandum of Understanding, which is part of the funding from the City of Carpinteria, City of Goleta, City of Santa Barbara, and the County of Santa Barbara. This has allowed for the task force to be funded and to be a funded effort and to have a direction and to be a coordinated effort because of that. So I would like to thank the City of Santa Barbara and your council for being part of that MOU and that funding. The mission is to focus on improving coordination among South Coast region education, client services, law enforcement agencies, and strategies to reduce youth gang violence, to help youth in gangs to get out of gangs and divert youth at high risk for becoming involved in gangs. And so when we talk about the task force and why it was formed, why the Memorandum of Understanding, what the mission is, with that being said, what is our focus? And the focus is the target population. And the way we have defined this target population is 150 youth that have gang terms and conditions. And what that means is that these 150 youth have committed crimes that have been reported by law enforcement agencies to the Department of Probation. They have gone to court, and the judge has found them guilty of a gang offense. Now, they might not be in a gang. They might be in a gang. They might be at high risk of a gang, but they did committed a crime in honor of a gang, which puts them at that level, at that risk that they're being involved in what's happening, what we're trying to divert and to lower the effects of. With that being said, there are 750 youth at risk of becoming involved in gangs. And this number was captured from agencies, from school, and from law enforcement. A lot of people have different numbers. A lot of agencies have different numbers. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, as you'll see in the presentation as we go on, as to what these numbers mean and where we're going with this. Also, one of our principles to keep in mind is that there's females involved in this. A lot of times we focus this as a young men issue. But there's also young women involved, and at the moment there's 37 young women that are involved, even though you'll see there's services that are serving more than 37 young women. So some of the milestones. In the summer of 2008, there was a pilot program. Programs got together as a result of the increased violence in the city of Santa Barbara, and there was no funding for this program. It was volunteer. From multiple agencies that collaborated on this in the summer of 2008. What this helped was it helped pave the road for the CalGRIP 1 grant and the CalGRIP 2 grant, which came out of the city of Santa Barbara and has benefited youth throughout the South Coast in the city of Goleta and the city of Carpinteria and in the unincorporated areas of Santa Barbara. It has allowed to secure 2 grants that have secured over 4 years, $750,000 to provide case management to youth that are involved and that have gang terms and conditions through the court. CalGRIP 1, I'm going to go very, very briefly into this, which was from 2009 to 2011. In the first quarter, there was 10% of the students that were enrolled that were credit compliant. By the fourth quarter, 68% of the students had become credit compliant, meaning that they were on track to graduate from school. They had earned their credits, they had been in a credit recovery program, and they had earned their credits to be able to graduate. Academic goals are always in the forefront of the CalGRIP program. And you can see a little bit about other programs as well, but this is mainly on the CalGRIP that was from 2009 to 2011. 70% graduated and enrolled in SBCC, so they also went for further education from the CalGRIP 1. And 65% of all those students enrolled completed their probation, gang terms, and conditions with the court, so they were done with probation after the CalGRIP. CalGRIP 2, this is from 2011 to the present right now. It's still current, and it's the second CalGRIP, which will be sunsetting December 31st of this year. Currently, there are 110 students enrolled in that program. 77 of those students, and these numbers are they were just reported to the state last week. 77% of the students enrolled as seniors have graduated this past year from school. That was 14 out of 18 of the seniors that were enrolled in the program. 63% of those have been are on the road for credit recovery by December 2012, and 62% have demonstrated an increase in attendance. And that's very important because it's a very difficult population. It's not the ice cream social kids. It's the kids that really don't go to school and have a really hard time doing that. And so we've seen some improvements through the CalGRIP 2 case management model. Some of the milestones, we are currently working with the target population in the CalGRIP 2, as you saw. 60 males and 50 females are being serviced through case management and also through an evidence-based curriculum called Project Towards No Drug Abuse, which addresses drug abuse and prevents drug abuse through this curriculum, and that is administered through groups throughout the South Coast region. The Bridges to Recovery, which you see there, 40 youth, this is a program that was a result of the grand jury report with Los Prietos Boys Camp. It was in response to aftercare. There not being an aftercare program for young men exiting Los Prietos Boys Camp. They went back to their communities. They went, to the same environments that put them in the boys camp in the first place. This is administered through the county ADMHS, and what it does is before the youth graduate from Los Prietos Boys Camp, a case manager is there to meet with them and their parents, and then they are also part of treatment through CADA. They are part of the ADMHS model. UCSB does the evaluation for this, and so it's a very collaborative effort between multiple agencies across the South Coast, and all young men exiting Los Prietos Boys Camp are a part of this Bridges to Recovery, and we'll have more numbers in the future on that. As a result of the CalGRIP grants that were awarded to the city of Santa Barbara and the South Coast, there was and collaboration with the South Coast Gang Task Force on Youth Gangs. The CalGRIP and Carpinteria, City of Carpinteria, was able to secure their own CalGRIP funding to provide programs in their city, as well as the city of Lompoc. They were able to, City of Santa Barbara and the South Coast Task Force on Youth Gangs collaborated with the cities to help them secure, or to assist them in securing their own CalGRIP grants. The Santa Barbara Unified School District has outreach efforts that are reaching 150 youth throughout the classrooms. There's an outreach specialist, Ismael Huerta, who works directly with these youth at all the high schools in the South region, as well as Los Prietos Boys Camp. Part of what we realized in CalGRIP 1, or not realized, but part of what we needed to address that wasn't addressed at the level we're addressing it now was parent support. And not just working with the youth, but working with the whole family, working with the parents. And we see here two pictures from a parent celebration honoring parents. These are all parents from the CalGRIP program, Bridges to Recovery program, Youth Offender Block Grant, which is another program through probation and collaboration with multiple agencies working with high offenders that would have been at the Youth Authority, but they're still in the community receiving services as opposed to being in the Youth Authority. And these are the parents of these youth that are involved. We're celebrating 10 of those parents that were there, of the 30 parents. 10 of those parents made a 1-year commitment to attend monthly meetings where they got support, they got a connection to resources, and they were awarded in front of the other parents, and it was an honor to sit with them. If you see really closely in the picture on the left, Marcelo was there, to witness the evening event. You probably can't see it in the screen, but later on, this PowerPoint will be on our webpage, on the South Coast Task Force webpage, and you'll be able to see it in full detail. The strategy team, part of one of the new changes that was made to the task force structure was the creation of the strategy team, which involves City of Santa Barbara, Community Action Commission, the County Probation Department, the Santa Barbara Unified School District, County Office of Education, Carpinteria School District, and is a monthly meeting to work on the strategy of the task force. And this group really has molded, and the relationships have grown. One of the examples that we've seen the benefits from it is the South Coast Youth Intervention Project, which I'm about to talk about in a second. The South Coast Youth Intervention Project, done by UCSB, Dr. Jill Sharkey is leading this effort, and she needed signatures. We're applying for funding because up until the moment there's been no funding behind it. We're applying for funding, and in a matter of 24 hours, she was able to get signatures from all of the agencies that needed to sign the MOUs to apply for this funding.
We have a question up there,
yeah.
Ms. Murillo.
Thank you, Mayor Schneider. Mr. Serrano, when you're talking about these different programs, there's the 150 and then the 750, and the strategy team strategizes for both of those populations?
The main target is the 150 at this point. The other 750, the Ismael Huerta and the school district, there's other efforts out there. What these programs that I've been talking about so far, they focus on the 150, the high risk.
And the parent group, and
and the parent
that was
group,
for
correct.
the kids who are in the life.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So the South Coast Youth Intervention Project, we have 30 youth enrolled so far that have agreed to participate in this project. What we hope to accomplish with the South Coast Youth Intervention Project is to empower youth and families to track service and progress, and to help agencies coordinate services for youth, to evaluate the quality of service, and to provide a community snapshot. Now, a lot of us attempted to do it in the community, and what we realize is that a lot of agencies can't communicate with other agencies because of confidentiality. And so what UCSB can do, because of their human subject department, they're able to gather that information, that data that other agencies in the community can't. And so it's being built as we speak. And so the goal is to collect data in an integrated database with privacy settings that will display reports to identify return on investment. The partners in this so far are UCSB, which is a host organization, County of Santa Barbara Probation, Carpinteria Unified School District, Santa Barbara Unified School District, Community Action Commission, and Human Tools, which is going to be doing the web part of it, hosting. The goal at the end of the day with the South Coast Youth Intervention Project is for people to be able to get information, for the youth to be able to log in and actually see their own, what appointments they have coming up, what court dates they have coming up, who their probation officer has been. And so this will be updated on a regular basis. Even we're talking even possibly getting text messages reminding them that they have an appointment the next day. And so we're excited about this South Coast Youth Intervention Project, because then we'll really be able to see. Now, it is a pilot program, and there are those MOUs between those organizations. We hope to make, once we get it going and it's working, to increase the scope, to broaden the scope of who's going to be a part of it, and then we'll have to decide what will people have access to be able to see what information. And then we'll be able to compile complete reports about this. And we hope to have these by as early as January, some preliminary reports from the data that UCSB will be able to collect without the restrictions that other agencies in the community have.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I would like to ask Mr. Serrano to please explain a little bit as to how the different counselors and agencies will be able to benefit from that information to provide services to the clients.
One of the things is we need more consistent information. I think you've heard that over from the beginning of the South Coast Task Force, is that we don't have accurate numbers of what's what. But what this entails is sort of an agency can log in and see what youth, what services, what interventions they're receiving currently. And if there's a gap in services, a case manager can directly can hit a button there and refer that youth directly at that point to the program that they need to be referred to. So it would facilitate help agencies, their efficiency, and what the services they're able to provide. It will provide more comprehensive services to youth and families in the South Coast.
Yeah, and the counselors will also be able to see if one agency is providing one service and they may need something from another agency. And often we're not communicating with each other. So this will allow us to have a better coordination amongst the agencies so that we can then provide the client-specific services, identify the gaps, and be able to track the whole system so that it goes from one counselor to the other and everyone knows what they're doing with this individual client. A lot of times we have more than one agency working with a client and we don't know what they're doing. This system will allow us to improve in client services.
And so far, there's been a lot of work that's been done by UCSB, Dr. Sharkey, and the strategy team, and that we've had no funding. We have applied for funding, so we remain optimistic that there'll be funding to support this effort. Upcoming, we have a service provider summit that is being planned for August 24th at the Shumash Casino, Samala Showroom. This is for service providers. It's a whole day event. It's a result of a Tri-Counties grant. The same office that funds the CalGRIP grant has given the County of Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo money to host a summit for service providers to come together and really countywide and realize and see what services each other programs are providing, and what are the new cutting-edge information that programs need to know. What are the latest synthetic drugs that are in the streets that service providers should be looking out for, that they should inform parents about. In summary, the South Coast Task Force has increased coordination in the South Coast by maintaining consistent involvement from key agencies at the table. At the moment now, there's an effort in the way that's consistently paying attention to this, where before it was, who was responsible for this? Who was responsible for looking into this? Now it's coordinated. There's an effort, there's strategies, and we're going somewhere with this. The schools, county probation, and agencies sit together to work on the strategies of the task force. A web page, monthly update, and quarterly meetings have been established and maintained to keep members informed and engaged. Client-specific programs are in place focusing on the target population while increasing collaboration amongst agencies. The South Coast Youth Intervention Project has been developed and is being implemented. Funding new strategies and stronger relationships has been formed due to the work of the task force, resulting in more comprehensive and coordinated efforts in the South Coast. And these are not all the programs that are out in the community servicing parents and family, specifically of the target population. These are some of the ones that we were able to share and talk with you. So hopefully in the future, we could come and share more of every program that is out there that we can talk about after the South Coast Youth Intervention Project is implemented. And one of the programs that we work with is Mark Alvarado and the City of Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation, and I want to invite him if he would like to come up and share a little bit.
Excuse me. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Council. I want to just say that since my appointment with the City of Santa Barbara, that I've had the opportunity to meet Mr. Serrano and look at his leadership in a manner, because he's developing the data that helps us identify who those 150 are and who those 750 are. And so with that 150 group, I'm working really closely with Fred Razzo in establishing a neighborhood school at the West Side Neighborhood Center. And we actually met last week, and we're looking at the Franklin Center because we have vacancy, and we have the teen center there. So we're looking to pull hopefully 15 to 20 kids for credit recovery and GED at our two neighborhood centers, and create, comprehensive opportunities for them to get involved with the apprenticeship program that we have, the culinary arts, and the Arts Alliance program. So those are two things that we're doing right off the bat that are really exciting. And then with the 750 is a program that we've established. You guys know we have a partnership with the Workforce Investment Board. They're no longer do summer youth employment. It's year-round employment now. And so it's not a big number right away, but we've already been able to place 5 kids with the Workforce Investment Board program and helping them get job training. And so things are starting to move, and we feel with Neighborhood Outreach Services that we are establishing a solid partnership with this effort. And we just feel like if we can just continue to look at kids to create opportunities for educational attainment versus other vices that they might get involved with, we think that that's one way that we're going to be able to keep violence down and keep kids moving forward and working with parents and families. So Just want to share that.
Thank you, Mark. And that is it. I don't know if there's questions of following. There was a lot of information also. I mean, to include everything and to bring everything up, it's going to be difficult. There's another two community schools. One is in Galita at the CAC site, CAC Administration Building, serving youth, and the other one is at the PAL Center, serving 30 youth currently in the community schools with credit recovery programs and individualized strategies to help the youth become credit compliant.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank you for your role as director and the work that you've been doing. It's been amazing to see the collaboration between different public agencies that 4 years ago didn't even know who to call, never mind where to go, and now they are coordinating with each other as a matter of course, and that's really key in terms of focusing on the needs of these specific kids and whatever it is that they need to succeed. So I know you are a key part of that. I want to thank you for that.
If I may share one last thing, at our last quarterly meeting, July 18th, we did a SWOT analysis with all of the members of the task force, 40 members. 30 were present.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and
Sorry,
threats.
yes.
That's all right.
And threats, yes. And what this allowed was members to provide what the strengths have been, what the weaknesses have been, what the opportunities have been, and what are the threats and the effort. And they gave the members shared a lot of input. And we hope to use this input to continue to have the members engaged and for direction as to where we move in the next upcoming years with this effort.
Great, thank you. We have some council lights on for questions or comments. Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Mr. Serrano, first of all, the numbers that you were quoting, are those for the 150 and 750, are those for the region?
That's for the South Coast region, correct.
And is it broken down into jurisdictional chunks?
I do have some of those numbers. They're about a month old. Were you interested in Santa Barbara? I can send you those numbers, or I could provide them at a later time. I do have them with me.
Right. And let's see. And then the other thing is, I don't remember what the Workforce Investment Board is.
The Workforce Investment Board is it's federal money to assist young people between the ages of 18 to 21 with job attainment, with job skills and education, gaining education, reconnecting back to City College or towards a GED in case they stopped going to school. And so it's to provide case management for employment services.
And so, and where is that? I see Mr. Armstrong.
It's administered by the County of Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. It's the County of Santa Barbara, and in South County, there's 50 youth that are a part of that program.
Okay, great. Okay, and then now you have been interim coordinator for how long?
Since September.
September.
So
you're coming up,
2011.
getting near a year. Well, so perhaps not at this moment, but before you finish, I would like to ask you, what are a couple of the most surprising things you've learned during your now near year?
It was interesting, and I'm going to be very honest. When I began, I didn't quite understand. I mean, I had been with the process since 2008. I had been at the meetings. But to really understand how it really works, it's really difficult. And it took me a couple weeks, maybe a couple months already in the job to understand it. And once you understand it, can really see the benefits for families and youth of what working together. There's no one agency that can solve the problem. There's no one department, there's no one organization or one person. This is a community effort, and you need to coordinate that community effort, regardless of who or what. It needs to have that direction, and it needs to involve the public. So I think that's been the most interesting thing to learn, is that the benefits are tremendous that we could achieve if going into this into the future. Maybe we might not see them yet, but as we're moving along, we're beginning to see some. And in 10, 15 years, hopefully not hopefully, but we will see some growth in those benefits.
Mr. Hotchkiss?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're talking ages 12 to 18?
12 to 18, correct.
Have you seen any influence of the gang injunction, which addresses people older than that, trying to help younger people like the ages you're talking about not get in gangs?
Correct. Our focus is the juveniles, and our goal is to prevent youth that are under a caseload from seeing themselves face a possible injunction in the future.
And have you seen any influence from the gang injunction yet that's helpful to you, either on families or older siblings?
Not directly, no.
well, we don't have a gang injunction yet because no judge ruling has happened yet. So it's kind of
Yeah.
so. Ms. Murillo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So you got a grant, $750,000 CalGRIP, and how has that been divided up? Prevention, intervention.
Correct. The first CalGRIP 1 provided suppression and intervention.
Okay.
The second one is completely intervention. And so that $750,000 is a sum of both CalGRIPs. So where specifically that money goes or went, we could provide those numbers at a later time.
I'm sorry, has it been spent, or you're getting ready to implement a program?
No,
that uses that money?
the first CalGRIP 1 has already sunsetted in 2011.
Okay.
March 31st of 2011. The current CalGRIP 2 will end in December 31st. So the last money from the CalGRIP 2 is going to, the sum of the 750 is going to end this December.
I would be interested in a breakdown of how that money was spent.
Okay.
And then I'd like to talk a little bit about intervention, and if you could describe, for us and the audience, what the challenges of getting out of a gang. What are the solutions, and do you think you have what you need to put effective measures in place? Intervention, getting a kid out of a gang, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, to start off, we can't get anybody out of a gang. The youth need to make their choices that they make. But what we could do is provide that assistance, that net that will motivate youth to make the right choices when it's appropriate. There's a lot of dangers that and I think the general public doesn't understand. When we ask a young man to do that, or a young woman, they're putting themselves in danger. And so I think above everything is the safety of youth in our town, the safety of youth and their families in our community. Is at the high most importance. How do we keep youth safe, whether they're in or out? And aside from that, how do we deviate youth from being involved into being a part of the lifestyle? And for the youth that are currently involved, what assistance can we provide? Whether it be jobs, whether it be education opportunities. We did do a survey last year with Los Prietos Boys Camp. All 57 youth were surveyed, and some of the results that came back, 1/3 of the youth said, I need help. I need somebody to stop me. The other 1/3 said, I need opportunities in education. That was the main one that came up, education. And you would be surprised, to hear a young person without really disclosing their name or anything say, I need help in education. A lot of people wouldn't think that would be the first answer that would come out. The other one, the 1/3, was protection. And so, and when you're asking that question, it's not for me to answer. I think the youth have answered that at Los Prietos, which have multiple risk factors that have shared that they need protection, they need opportunities, and they need somebody just to intervene and help them make those changes.
Right. I mean, I heard Mr. Alvarado talking about making up credits. So obviously these kids are alienated from school, or they're at an age where they need job skills or encouragement to go to city college, that kind of thing.
With credits, just because youth are moving through the grades doesn't mean they're going to graduate. We have youth that should have 120 credits, but might have 30 credits instead. At that point, a lot of them decide to give up. They say, I'm never going to graduate. I'm never going to make up my credits. It creates a trickle effect that leads them, spiral that leads them downward. I'm never going to graduate. What am I going to do? I'm never going to get a job. What am I going to do? What's available to me in my community?
What I hear from people is that intervention is the trickiest part, right? Here's a young person, and they get to an age, they want to get a job, or they're to assume that the person is male. Their girlfriend has a baby, and they want to get out of the gang life. And the system doesn't know how to deal with kids who are transitioning. I mean, that's what I'm hearing from the people that I talk to that are working with these young people who are trying to recover from their bad choices. So I have a keen interest in intervention, and I'd like to meet with you separately and be more involved with the process. And then let me ask you, because the city of Santa Barbara, we contribute money into this process. We also have a police force that I think has a lot of contact with these young people. Is there something that you would like to, how can law enforcement help with intervention?
I don't know if I think their role is suppression. So I don't know with intervention. One thing I will share is that we did create these cards, these resource cards for officers to carry with them, so that in case they go to a house or they go to an incident they've been called to and they can't arrest anybody, they've used, they've gone to the limits of the law, they can at least provide resources to the family and youth, who to contact. There's 5 resources on there that are available 24 hours. A person will get back to these families within 24 hours to connect them with services in the moment of crisis. And so I actually personally went to brief all the police officers in Santa Barbara on this card, and also gave them an additional resource guide that the task force created of additional services that they could provide to the families. And I think just having that information for police officers was valuable. I heard the feedback from some of them say, thank you, for a lot of us, we do our job, but a lot of times we don't have access to these resources. So we appreciate you sharing these resources with us so that we could do our job. And if we need to refer to intervention programs, we have those accessible now. The next step with this is we're going to be doing it with the Sheriff's Department as well.
I'm happy to hear the positive tone of your presentation, and in particular what Mr. Alvarado was saying. A lot of criticism that I hear about our gang injunction is that what's the alternative to that? And it seems like you're creating something positive outside of the injunction, which to some people feels like a trap, right? Mm-hmm. These young people, they get the order against them, and unfortunately for them, I know a lot of them may have created their own troubles, but if they're trying to get out of the life, they need support and alternatives, and a system that recognizes that there's a transition period from making up your mind that you're going to change your life, and it's not easy, right?
Correct.
It's like recovering from alcoholism. Sometimes there's a slip.
Correct.
But we don't throw those people away. We say, okay, get back on the horse and try it again. So same thing, I think, with these young people.
Correct. And I do want to say I'm available to meet with any of the council members individually and talk further and brief you, give you more specific information on the presentation. I know I didn't get specific to a lot of those areas, but if you're interested, I'm available to come and meet with you and give you more specific information.
I'm quite interested.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Mr. House?
Yes, Mr. Serrano, thank you for being here, but mostly thank you for stepping up into this position. It was you coming in at a time it was really needed to have somebody with your level of street cred as well as expertise just in the field, and thank you very much. And I think your heart speaks for you as well. A couple of things that have come up just listening to you. You were talking about 10 to 15 years. You used even those long range kind of numbers. And our community has, in some cases, maybe unrealistic expectations about how quickly the gang problem can be solved. Could you talk to us just briefly about what are the right expectations for the community? And you have an opportunity now. People will be watching this, and we can talk to you individually, but it's good for people in the community at large to hear. What's the right way
right. To answer your question, first of all, I don't want to make it sound like we got to wait 10 to 15 years for results. I think we're already seeing results right now. And I think what I was saying is that, those results we're seeing will only be magnified in 10 to 15 years, will only be increased in growth. They'll grow over time, which is a social return on investment. That it grows over time, not just in the moment that you're doing the intervention. And as time goes on, we'll see that. The gang topic, it didn't start yesterday and it didn't start today. It started a long time ago, and it's going to take a long time to we don't know if we will where we're going to go from here. Who's going to stay at the table, who's going to keep supporting this effort. But what I can say is that coordination and a consistent, comprehensive effort is what is needed throughout the South Coast, not just in the city of Santa Barbara, not just in the city of Goleta, and not just in the city of Carpinteria, but across the board.
And you've also included in your report, or at least in our staff report, monies that went to Lompoc, and you're coordinating with those in the North County part as well.
We're correct.
And then just lastly, you said coordination and the dedication, but also a reliable funding stream. And I just want to ask you if you'll just break it down for us. There's the support for the task force, but also you're not trying to do all the Community Action Commission is not trying to do it all themselves.
No.
That you're actually in the coordinating role. Reliable funding for the organizations and the programs and the other agencies, right?
Correct. The task force doesn't run programs. The task force, what it does is it works to coordinate the programs that other agencies, community agencies, county agencies, and city agencies are working towards, and to provide that network of people working together on the same page.
Well, perhaps one of the things that can happen is that you can draw attention to where people who want to contribute can actually put their money if they have an interest in reducing teen pregnancy or supporting young people in their transition or whatever. That's one of the roles that your coordinated effort can help.
Correct. And one of the challenges with programs is funding. And so as we move forward with this effort, our goal is to provide support to those agencies and those programs that are providing the programs to the community, and to be able to support them with data and information and technical support that they'll need to be able to sustain themselves and to provide better services, because they'll be able to secure funding through this effort.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think I see Dr. Sharkey here.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm
Did you-
gonna,
go ahead.
if Dr. Sharkey can share with us.
Hello. Did you want to hear about the?
If you could introduce yourself and your role with the task force, and you want to turn on the mic there, but if you can state your name for the record, too.
Sure. This is Jill Sharkey. I work out at UCSB in the Center for School-Based Youth Development. Thank you for having me here. I'm here to support Saul in talking about the task force. One of my roles is I'm on the strategy team, so I help the members come up with ideas for how to help with the coordination and other goals of the task force. And so one of the things we saw was that there was some frustration about how we can get a finger on who are these kids and how are they doing individually. But what happens is each agency works with a group of kids, and we don't know how those services overlap. So we know some kids are in, all the kids are in schools, hopefully, or most, a lot of our schools work with those kids. They're at the CAC, they're on probation, but no one knows which kids are getting which services. And we also don't know like a solid number of how many kids are on gangs. We also don't know how they're improving or what, how they're doing when they go through services. So what we've just tried to do, and we have some models. So there's a program called Bridges to Recovery that ADMHS and probation run, and they've been able to get around or to overcome some of the hurdles because there's obviously a lot of ethical concerns, HIPAA regulations, FERPA regulations, all of the confidentiality of human information that we must keep, each agency must keep. But the University of California is very good at knowing how to protect that information, but yet allow the agencies to share the information. And so that's been my role, is to try to help these agencies to be able to share information to help the kids and their families, to try to coordinate their services, to evaluate how the services are doing for them individually, but also as groups, and then also to inform the community as to how many kids, what's the precise number, and which services are they getting. So that's our goal for where we're going. We've moved really rapidly forward in meeting that goal by having some partners on board with memorandums of understanding. We've met and all the regulations of the university, so human subjects protection procedures that we have to go through. And then a new exciting development is we've brought on board a software developer who has experience with all of these ethical considerations in other private business arenas, and wants to develop a nonprofit database to help all the agencies be able to automate the data analysis and reporting. So one of my roles was going to be to collect the data, the core hard data, and to have to sort through the data, analyze the data. But this database program would allow the data to come straight from the agencies and be spit out into reports that would come regularly on demand. Families could use it, for instance, to find out when their child's appointments are, to get text reminders of when their appointments are. Probation officers could find out if they've been tardy at school or missed school. Teachers could find out if they've committed a new offense. So it kind of allows, normally what would happen is a probation officer would have to say, I want to know how this child's doing at school. Call the school, leave a message for the teacher. The teacher would have to call the probation officer. Then the probation officer has to respond to the call. So you can see how something that normally is a really intensive effort for a probation officer or a teacher to get information would become automated just through this database. So we're working on that as one of the main things that the task force is sort of sponsoring and pushing through because it really requires the collaboration of all of the agencies. So that's one example of how this collaboration can really help the community at all levels, both just from individual youth and families all the way up to the whole community-wide reports. And it's a model we think will be, there's some interest from other counties and I think across the nation. It's a model, it's new, it's innovative, it's very hard to do, but we're making a lot of progress.
Thank you for that explanation. You mentioned all the health information, private information, HIPAA requirements, but I imagine also what must be difficult is each agency probably has a different way of calculating the data itself. It's not like everyone has the same field or the same Excel sheet with the same info. I mean, you're getting, for one individual, maybe 10 different types of data in different formats. And that's part of the job, too, is to consolidate all that in a way that makes sense.
Right. So there's a lot of background work to be done in terms of identifying that we're not going to take, probation collects 500,000 data points on kids potentially, but we're going to collect maybe 30 of the most critical and important pieces of information. So first of all, it's identifying which information. It's also identifying that very complicated process, which might seem easy, get someone's name and birth date and you can match them, but these kids, they have aliases, they've their names may be typed in wrong, their date of birth they might have the same name and date of birth as another kid. So there's procedures that we'll establish on how the order of things, so how does a student get input into the database, and then how does that get matched with information from other agencies. These are things that are part of the procedures that are complicated but are behind the scenes. So once the user, and we're moving very slowly in that, that's going to be very careful. And I think sometimes people think, oh, the software could be a risk for a release of confidential information, but it actually is going to protect it more than the human error that could be involved in collecting the data, making sure the names aren't visible, making sure no one accidentally says someone's name in a meeting, because that's kind of how it works now, where we all use code to discuss, cases and do case management for these other projects. But this would allow every user would have a level of security that's vetted through the permission process. So the families are going to help decide what level of information is allowed. So families can say, I'm okay with everyone sharing all of the information because I know it'll help me, versus I don't want my special education and counseling history shared, but I'm okay with my probation and attendance, regular school information being shared. So there's levels of security for each kid. The database would help protect that at a very individual child and individual user level.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rouse?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dr. Sharkey, Mr. Serrano talked about identifying certain kids that were the target. I think the number was 150, and then there was 750 at risk, which obviously you're trying to be proactive. I was a little curious on what kind of criteria would place somebody in that group, and then kind of triggers it would take to get that designation.
Right. Now, we've wrestled with that, too, because each agency kind of has their way of identifying someone as being involved with or associated with gangs. What we've decided is the clearest criteria is if probation, so when a youth comes into probation, they will get gang terms and conditions. And if they get gang terms and conditions, then at this point, those are the kids we're going to find eligible for and recruit for the database project. And what we're hoping, right now, we're doing a lot of legwork to get each family to explain the process and get them involved. What we're hoping is to automate it through when the actual terms and conditions are assigned with the judge, so that the judge can explain the process, have an opportunity for the family to think about what it would involve, and then sign the permissions. Eventually, once this becomes a more automated process, we could include all kids on probation. It wouldn't have to be with gangs terms and conditions. I mean, it could. Right now, a for-profit agency does a database for the 0 to 5 commission, and that's hundreds and thousands of kids potentially. So it's something that we're starting very small with just the handful of kids and families who've signed permissions who have gang terms and conditions, and then we're going to expand it and see how it works for them and potentially broaden it.
Ms. Maria?
Thank you. The database has me just a little concerned about there being a collection of data. I think it might make individuals vulnerable. So I would just, ask, or maybe I'll be more nosy offline about who has access to it and what kind of protections there will be in a civil liberties and privacy sense.
Right. So the database developers have done this for their main for-profit arena is in the parking industry, so they have to get driver's license information, potentially criminal histories and things that are very protected as well. And so they have this down in that sense. So where they bring that in here, they already have explained to us, and I'm no expert, but that that the physical servers themselves are under lock and key with security cameras, and so it's not like it's just in their office, the servers where the data are kept. It would be in a specific, their agency is going to be called Human Tools. They're just starting it with this project as their first project, but it would be a Human Tools room, and it would have security, and then beyond that, all of the firewalls and of those security protections to make sure hackers couldn't get in. And then beyond that, at the user level, so there would be a few people, maybe one person at each agency who's doing data entry who might need to have access to all the data, but the line officer would only be able to get the line officer report, and the teacher would only be able to get the teacher report, and then the family could have the family report. So those are things I would welcome your input on, that kind of decision making, but it's they're starting with that security in mind.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other questions or comments for our speakers here? Mr. White?
Madam Mayor, in our agenda review preparing for today, we brought this up with our administrator and assistant administrator, and I'm impressed with how the city has really tried to struggle with this amorphous, overwhelming, difficult issue during these tough times. And I appreciate that our staff is really focusing on trying to make the best of the tools we have available, the resources we have available. And I thank you for giving it your best shot in these tough times. And obviously, Mr. Serrano, you stepped onto a hot seat, or sat on a hot seat, and I also want to thank you for stepping up and being willing to do that in a difficult environment. And you have a local stake in the game, and that's how I feel about working in Santa Barbara, and I appreciate that you have that and you're performing that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the data collection and analysis is going to be key, because I think we've all set up here for years. We get this from the general public. The media asks, how many kids are we talking about? What's going on with them, and what are the results, and how can we measure success? And you can't do that without data. And so there's that fine line of making sure we have good information while not compromising someone's safety or privacy rights. And so that's going to be a huge piece. And we have so many great organizations throughout the South Coast that do very good work. And you hear anecdotes and you hear good stories, and you might even know a few of the kids who've been part of it. But as a collective impact, which is the big word we keep hearing now, we just don't know. And so getting this information, it's been a number of years getting to this point, but I really see this moving to another level where public agencies especially are now communicating with each other in a way they've never done before, and now to also then encourage and invite other social service agencies in the nonprofit world and philanthropic world who have been very active in this in arena to be a part of this as well, and they have been, and they will continue to be, and to strengthen that, I think is huge, because then we'll start seeing where we're successful, and we can, and talking about the lack of funds, and trying to really pool those funds to programs that we now know work and have good data and good measurable results, versus programs that might sound great or might feel good but maybe aren't producing those kind of results, or maybe there's some kind of collective or merger or something that can happen, and that is very exciting to me. So I appreciate the excellent report that you just gave, and I know we'll all have more questions, but I think we're moving in the right direction. So thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 11.
Item number 11, Capital Improvement Projects, Annual Report for Fiscal Year 2012.
Thank you, Mr. Hagmark.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Joshua Hagmark. I'm a principal civil engineer in the Public Works Engineering Division. I'm pleased to be here today to recap the FY12 capital program and what we've accomplished for the year. Quickly going over it, my goal today is to summarize the projects we've completed this year and also show you what we're working on right now in construction and also in design. So let's start with a little summary of what we've completed in the third quarter of FY12. We had approximately $12 million worth of projects that we filed notices of completion on. Basically, just stop right there. Notice of completion is a filing we do with the county that kind of completely summarizes the project, closes it out financially. So we filed it for 6 projects in the third quarter. The access ramps, McKinsey parking lot, Zone 4 rejuvenation, Cape Seal, Ortega Street Bridge, which was a big one, the terminal passenger boarding bridge, and the McKenzie Well abandonment. In the fourth quarter, we had 7 projects that we filed notice of completion on, and totaling approximately $16 million. And those included Cliff Drive, which was a huge public project, the Elings Park landfill gas collection and control system, Fire Station 1 administrative office building, the Caltrans water line replacement at Cacique Street, the Haley de la Vina bridge replacement, Zone 6 slurry seal, and the FY11 sidewalk access ramps. So a total of 22 projects were completed this last fiscal year, and I acknowledge this map's somewhat difficult to read, but I think the point that I wanted to make with it is that work is happening all over the city. I think there is no part of the city that is left without attention. There is lots of work going on out there to keep the city running smoothly, and that's the plan going forward. I wanted to just highlight a few projects that we wrapped up this last fiscal year, and I'm sure you're all aware of all of them. This roughly $7 million Ortega Bridge project, replacing a 1915 structurally deficient bridge. And we increased the length of this bridge by 20 feet to improve flood control capacity and reduce flooding in the neighborhood there. The work included all kinds of sidewalks, curb gutters, water main that need to be relocated, utilities, and it also had some native plantings and wildlife rockfish habitat that was put in as well as part of that project. And also another bridge, the Haley de la Vina Bridge project, roughly $10 million. It also replaced a deficient bridge. And this is always a challenging one for the public because it's kind of unique. I had someone tell me, why are you putting a bridge there? Well, the whole intersection is a bridge. You know, it was a tough one because, you know, if you're not really familiar with your surroundings, you don't notice that it is a bridge. But indeed it is, and we were planning for the future with the width there. This bridge is about 20 feet wider than the previous bridge and is set up for county flood control to take over with the Lower Mission Creek project, where they'll be widening the creek to increase the entire stretch for its flood control capacity. So, you know, I personally was the project manager for the construction of this. I had lots and lots of concerns. This was right in a very densely packed neighborhood. Became really good friends with a lot of people in this neighborhood. And, you know, I've heard from quite a few of them. They are really pleased with this project. They feel like it was the catalyst for change in this neighborhood. Along with this, I know we're working on the Lower West Downtown Lighting Project. You know, the folks on Brinkerhoff, they didn't want us to leave. They kind of liked how quiet it made their neighborhood at night. So it was interesting, the friends you make. And I think I'd take this opportunity just to recap on the bridge program. So far we have completed 2 of the 9 bridges that we currently are working on and gotten funding for. We received 88% funding, grant funding, from the Federal Highway Bridge Replacement Program. So to put that into perspective, we used $2 million of our streets funds, and we're able to take on $15 million in grant funding from the federal government. And we got to use that to make, you know, critical asset investments here and really put money into we had local contractors doing both of these jobs, and that money got spent here, and it put Santa Barbarans to business and it put to work. So I think it was a very successful all the way around project.
Nicely said. Mr. Francisco has a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Hegmark, in the staff report, it mentions that this project won an award from the American Public Works Association. What was that about?
Thank you, Councilmember Francisco. Yes, APWA solicits every year. They take on solicits for Project of the Year for various categories, and we won Project of the Year for the transportation category, which is a huge. It's a pretty big deal in this area because there's a lot of transportation projects. So.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Fire station number 1, administrator's office building. So just kind of a little back history on this. So this was was to be part of the original campus. This was the fire station number 1 campus that it's tied to. And in 2006, council gave us direction to start moving forward with fire station number 1. We got into it, and I think you guys remember the economy at that time was going crazy. We ended up pulling this portion of the project out because we were concerned we wouldn't have enough money to finish the main fire station. But we timed it, fortunately perfect. The economy was just perfect for the fire station number 1, and we brought that project in on time and under budget and had enough money to move forward with the fire station AOB, which was completed in January of 2012, and we were able to get out of our lease at 925 De La Vina, where we were leasing space for fire admin staff. So that was a huge savings to the general fund when it comes to rent. We haven't officially received it, but we're on track to get LEED Silver for this building based on its efficient use of energy and environmentally friendly building materials and practices. So, I chose this project to kind of highlight for construction just because it points out just the wide variety of work we work on. It's just, I really enjoy working here. I hope that comes across because I enjoy the unique projects we get involved with. And this is just one example of those. In this case, for those in the audience who may not know, Elings Park, or a portion of Elings Park, is actually located on the city's old landfill. Where the ball fields overlies an old landfill. And over the past few years, the methane levels have been increasing. We've been monitoring it for years, and they've been increasing, and they've reached a point where we needed to take action, and the state was overseeing basically the steps to clean this up. And so we installed 4 capturing wells inside the ball field, and they pipe the gas to this oxidizer here, which safely eliminates the threat of explosion or from the methane gas. So we currently have 23 projects in construction right now, close to $80 million, and I'm just going to be featuring 2 of those today. One of them is the Conejo Road repairs, a very sensitive and challenging area. City staff have been up here for years maintaining the road and trying to keep things open. This project is mainly driven because the access over the last year or so, the road has moved so much that fire trucks have difficulty going up and around this turn. And so we'll be making significant improvements to this pin turn here at Conejo Lane to make sure the access stays open through here for fire protection. And it also, kind of an interesting, it also will put the road back in the right-of-way. The road has been sliding out of the city's right-of-way, which is an interesting problem up in this area. So the project includes quite a few things. One of them is trying to capture the storm water and get it into a storm drain so we can try and slow down the movement of this landslide as much as possible, full well knowing that there is no feasible solution to stopping this landslide. Some of the testing we've done, it's about 75 feet deep. So this is just a huge mass. People always say, hey, why don't you put some piles in and put the road on piles? It won't matter. At that big of a mass, no pile is going to stop it. And so we're just going to continue to have some level of maintenance to continue to keep this road open. It does kind of move in fits and starts. And so we'll constantly be keeping our eye on it. And I think another big point here is we're going to be diverting some of the sewer flows that currently go around this pin turn. We're able to acquire an easement upstream of here, and we'll be able to get about 35 homes out of this pin turn, which will reduce the risk of a spill. So this work will start in September, and it'll take about 2 months, and we've met with the public several times to make sure we're all coordinated on it, because it will be closed during that period of time. The next project here, the Los Canoas Water Main, this is part of the city's annual goal of replacing 1% of the city's water system. I think that the major highlights of this project, it's about 12,000 feet or 2 miles roughly, is it will improve fire flows up in here. This is kind of the last road beyond the wilderness, and so this will help out with structure fires. This main will not stop a forest fire, but it will help our firefighters protect structures. And so we'll be upsizing that main from an 8-inch to a 12-inch up there, and continue to provide reliable service. We've met with the public on this. There's even we recorded the meeting in case anybody was interested in it, because we wanted to make sure everyone knew. We've been coordinating quite a bit with police and fire, just because the construction is going to be this rolling construction site that'll kind of be moving gradually, and the road will be closed when as it moves along. So there is a video City TV helped us out with. It was
Quick question. When you increase the size of the main, does the pressure remain the same?
the pressure does remain the same.
It does?
It does.
Thank you.
Yeah, just more volume is available, basically. So this project starts in mid-August and will probably wrap up in early 2013. This particular crossing is, I don't believe this is at Rattlesnake. This is one of the little creeks along the way. And of course, you see kind of the challenge with that bridge. That is a, dry stacked stone. There's nothing structural about that bridge, so we can't really tie into it. So a lot of these crossings, this actually ended up being one of the more difficult design projects. We thought it'd be pretty easy, but the road is rather windy, and there's a lot of really old bridges up in that area. So the signage, we're going to have lots of signage to help people how do you get to Rattlesnake Creek or Schofield Park, because there will be a rolling closure during the daytime.
You said it's starting next month through early 2013.
That's right.
And the road closures along the way, but if there's like a high fire alert or something like that, what would happen at that point?
That's right. The contractor will have steel plates on site, and anytime there actually is a red flag, he won't be allowed to work for that day.
Okay.
We've actually built into the contract a fixed cost that he will get when it's a red flag. But if they were working and a fire were to break out, they have plates on site which they can plate the trench and open it up to full traffic.
So evacuation could occur?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hotchkiss?
Road closure, is that going to absolutely close the road, or are they going to put those plates on at night?
The plates, it will be opened up every evening.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are 40 projects currently in design, roughly $83 million, and I'm just going to highlight two of those. One of these, and this is a long-range project we've been working on, is Las Positas at Cliff Drive, and they're currently kicking around a couple ideas on this. Obviously, a traffic light intersection and a roundabout are the two top options that they're looking at. The currently we have $750,000 grant that we're working off, transportation grant that we're working on. Obviously won't cover the full cost, but we're not expecting to do any construction here until probably 2015. So we'll be putting together money hopefully to cover the entire thing.
Which is the more expensive of those two options, light or a roundabout?
I don't know the answer to that right now, but I can get back to you on that.
Okay.
Well, and it'd be good, not just the construction costs, but then the ongoing management of it, because a street light has certain costs that a roundabout wouldn't in the long term, right?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Hotchkiss, our current, with the preliminary work that's been done looking at those two options, it appears the roundabout would be significantly more expensive than the signalized intersection. So we're going to be, I think, kind of framing the long-term benefit and the cost associated with how the options could play out. And do both provide equal flow patterns, if I can put it that way? I don't think they're equal. I mean, the long-term benefit of a roundabout is much greater.
Insofar as the traffic flow is concerned.
That's right. But to address the current traffic flow congestion issues, a signalized intersection could be effective. But it's that break point when
as it increases.
So there's not the clear, bright line of this is the obvious only way to go. I think we're going to be continuing to look at the trade-offs of the two options and how they best can be.
Any idea when we would hear about that?
Well, as Josh pointed out, we're targeting 2015 to be in a point where we would be ready to begin construction. So it'll be over that window of time that we'll be going through the analysis and analyzing the trade-offs.
So we probably next year we're going to hear something more on this.
I believe so, yes. We'll be starting to have that better understanding of what those trade-offs look like.
Since we're on the topic, if it's 2015, that is probably around the time when 225 would become a city street. So I guess part of the question is in terms of the planning, how much is Caltrans part of this? Because 2 of the 3 roads there are right now owned by Caltrans, and they have jurisdiction over a street light or certain kinds of dimensions for roundabouts or whatever else. I mean, so how is that working?
Madam Mayor, that's a very good question. We currently have a schedule from Caltrans estimating that the relinquishment process would be completed by December of 2013. That presumes that they would make all the deadlines to be able to get to the California Transportation Commission schedule and the necessary hoops that our preliminary estimate looks doable, but we'll have to hit every mark. So sometime around the end of 2013, beginning of 2014, we anticipate that the relinquishment would be completed. In the meantime, this is a project that we have anticipated would be moving forward, and the question of would it be Caltrans involvement or not has sort of been in the background, but we would essentially have the same type of traffic design criteria that we would be looking at. I think what it simplifies is the review process and some of the potential hoops we would possibly need to go through if we were looking at design exceptions. Mm-hmm. So it would be a clearer process with the relinquishment
And a
being
street light
accomplished.
there, if it was still a Caltrans road, would be by Caltrans, wouldn't be by, right? Because the other signalized lights are controlled by Caltrans, not by us. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. I think this has been a somewhat unique project because it has been one that the city has taken the lead on. So how all of that would if we weren't to move forward with relinquishment, how all of that would have ended up looking in an agreement would obviously be different than presuming that the relinquishment has been accomplished and there's not a question.
Great. Thank you.
You bet.
Our last project that we're highlighting in design is actually just bids are being opened this Thursday on it, and it's the last phase of the breakwater cap replacement. They started out at the tip and are kind of working their way back, and this will be right around the curve there, right next to Marina One. And like I said, the bids are opening this week, and we hope to, depends on there's a permit that's kind of hanging out there that if we don't get it, our goal is to start in September. If we don't get that, it'll be pushed off until March. But we're going to move forward and get this done. And then our last item here is just kind of a update on Cater ozone project. And just kind of recap on that, the project is currently in construction and expected to be complete in the spring of 2013. And the value is approximately $20 million. And it is funded through a state low-interest, state revolving fund loan. Okay.
The Cater Water Treatment Plant is a regional facility that treats water for Santa Barbara, Montecito, and the Carpinteria Valley water districts. Cater treats water in accordance with drinking water rules prescribed by the United States Environmental Protection Agency. In response to new rules, a $21 million ozone project is underway at Cater.
The project has been, as far as construction, has been very routine so far. Things are going well, but I think the highlight is it's very challenging to do a project like this where You have to keep the plant up and running. We're producing quality water for the city currently, but trying to do this major undertaking, which is almost like a heart transplant, to put this into operation. And so there's a lot of constant coordination with the water treatment staff as we go through each one of the changes that are going on.
The ozone project took years to develop and considered many alternatives. The resulting project, which involves using ozone as a pre-treatment process and includes new chemical stations, a dewatering facility, and replacement of 4 booster pumps, was selected as the best alternative for the 3 South Coast water agencies.
It's extremely complicated. There's a lot of parts. There are actually several buildings being put up to house the equipment that's going on. The equipment, the ozone equipment is actually from Germany, and so there was a lot of coordination and communication, which is challenging in getting stuff here, but that stuff has arrived on site. There's probably 16 crates that came in, car-sized crates that came in from Germany recently, and so those are stored on site while we're finishing the building that those are going to go inside of.
The new drinking water rule limits the allowable levels of byproducts created by chlorine, which is added to water for disinfection. By using ozone as a pre-treatment, more of the naturally occurring dissolved organic material will be filtered out during the treatment process. As a result, there will be lower levels of material for the chlorine to react with, which will effectively reduce the levels of disinfection byproducts. There are 3 components to an ozonation system: the ozone generator, the ozone contactor, and an ozone destruction device. The ozone generator uses either air or pure oxygen to produce ozone gas. The ozone is generated by using electricity to convert O2 to O3. Ozone is very unstable and reverts back into O2 in minutes, which is why ozone must be generated on site and cannot be shipped to the water treatment plant. For ozone to serve as a disinfectant and oxidant, it must be dispersed very finely through the water. The ozone contactor accomplishes this by using bubble diffusers located in a pressurized contact chamber that provides a guaranteed contact time between the ozone and the water to ensure disinfection and oxidation of the water. The gas created from the ozone contactors has to be recycled or destroyed. The off-gas stream is first passed through a demister, which traps small water droplets on stainless steel mesh. The off-gas stream is then heated and destroyed. The project is funded by a 20-year state low-interest loan, with 39% of the total project funding coming from the Montecito and Carpinteria Valley water districts.
We spent probably more than 5 years in the making trying to get everything lined up to do this. The design work was probably in the last 2 years of that, but there's a significant amount of planning that goes into a project of this magnitude.
The project is currently 60% complete, with the target completion date of April 2013.
As a civil engineer, it doesn't get more exciting than this. I mean, this project involves so many different aspects of engineering, and we bring in experts from literally all over the country to help out with a project of this magnitude. We've Carollo Engineers is our engineer, main engineer on this, but they've brought in experts as well on their team to kind of meet the needs of this project. And yeah, I mean, there's just from electrical, the mechanical, piping, pumping, and then also the technology of ozone is really cutting edge.
We appreciate your enthusiasm.
Good.
Right. Well, if ratepayers want to know where those rate increases were going, that's a big chunk of change right there. So it's completely paid for by water rates to do it. Yeah. Mr. Hotchkiss.
This is like Disneyland for you, is that what you...
Yes, it is.
I'd really like to learn more about this. We went by that so fast, you know. I mean, ozone used to be a dirty word. Now it's just key to our system here. So I have another question entirely, though. We talked about resurfacing in Zone 4 and Zone 6, slurry seal. Refresh my memory. Where is Zone 4 and where is Zone 6?
Councilmember Hodgkiss. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I don't have the map in front
Oh,
of
I'm
me.
glad
but
somebody
yeah.
else doesn't know this either. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. I'd like to know that. And do we have some zones coming up in the next year or so? Because people ask, what happened to my road? And if we're going to do something, I'd like to know about it. So if we could see the next year's schedule, it'd be great.
Yes, Councilmember Hodgkiss, we have a very detailed map on our website where you can find out which zone and where your house and what zone it's in. It's actually, we're doing Zone 5 now. We skipped Zone 5. There was some funding issues, so we backed up and we're doing Zone 5, and then we'll be back to Zone 1 again. But reference people to go ahead and give us a call at engineering. We'd be happy to talk with them about where their house is and in proximity, but we also have that map on our engineering website.
And is it off the city address, off the city website?
SantaBarbaraCA.gov/engineering.
Engineering. Okay. Well, that's easy to refer them to that. I'll start them there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And excuse me, Madam Mayor and Councilmember Hotchkiss, I think the other thing that we're also trying to be very straightforward about is even if you happen to be within the zone that we're working on, it's not a guarantee that we'll be able to touch all of the road needs within that zone. We found that with the limited road rehabilitation funding that we have, we really have been triaging the projects that are going to be most effective for us to be spending money on. And in some cases, and I think Zone 5 is one of the examples, we're actually kind of taking that over 2 years because we know we can't do the bulk of the work that's needed within 1 year. So it's a guide, it's an indicator, and we also try to use it when we're working with utilities or property owners who have to do underground work to look at that forecasted zone map. So if work is going to be coming up, that they'll get it done and not fall under what we try to keep as a moratorium for cuts after a newly completed road project. So appreciate the question.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Murillo?
Thank you. The ozone project seems extensive and expensive. So we're sure that there's not going to be a different treatment method next year or something like that?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Murillo, yes, we've spent, like I mentioned, we spent about 5 years studying this, and we did lots of pilot studying to test out different types of treatment methods that would work. And so we feel very confident that this is the direction we should be going, and so do our partners of Montecito and Carpinteria.
And Madam Mayor and Councilmember Murillo, this is such a large project, as you point out. This did come back to Council as we completed those analyses of options for what we could do to address the changing federal standards. And that was something that we did want to make sure that Council understood as we looked at trade-offs and the costs associated with the different options, because, once again, there are some options that might have helped us meet the regulation potentially at a lower cost, but with less quality control or over the long haul, less reliability in being able to assure that we were going to meet those continuing needs. So it's a big decision. You want to make sure that you are looking at all the options and understanding those options, moving forward to actually choosing one and implementing it. But that's another thing that the long lead time for some of these projects makes it difficult to try and keep on the front burner.
Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm recalling back to something like 20 plus years ago when the whole notion of trihalomethanes got on the table. That's the disinfectant byproduct that is the problem here, and we're talking about parts per billion that we're trying to get out of the water. This has just emerged as an issue. First as, okay, well, let's test the water a little differently. Okay, the studies come in from EPA that this is a carcinogen, and it evolves to the place where we've got an unfunded mandate to add this machine to our system. And I don't share our staff's confidence that this is it. It just feels like the next tests are done, and also the trihalomethanes come out of fecal material, bovine fecal material, as they say, that's and also burned chaparral and such like in the Cachuma watershed. So all of this sort of goes downhill, as they say, and but the next batch of tests and potential carcinogens and all of that is I don't have the confidence that this is it. I think we're just going to keep moving the bar to try and maintain a safe water system, and this is one of the daunting pieces that is in our puzzle now.
If I understand you right, and I agree, the regulations are constantly changing. Is what you're saying. The goal line is always moving. So this is where the goal line is right now. But in 5 years, who knows where the goal line is going to be? Yeah. Okay. I just want to be sure that people understand we're doing the best we can right now. If they move the goal line, that's a different deal. Thank you.
Just a question, totally different topic. The West Downtown lighting project. Just to get an update, as I'm remembering correctly, there were in 3 phases. Phase 1 has been complete. We had ceremony about that. And then phases 2 and 3 are ready to go, but they were going to be funded with redevelopment agency money. That is no longer on the table, so it's just now looking for a funding source. Is that the status of phase 2 and 3 on that project? Do you know? Mr. Hagmark knows how to get it done. He doesn't know where the money comes from. That's Mr. Armstrong probably, right?
Yeah, at this point, it's on hold. They were to be funded with RDA funds. And as we mentioned, I think a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the latest RDA dissolution bill, there is a potential that some of that bond money that we have for capital projects could be used for some of the projects that we wanted to get done. So we'll be coming back to you, I think, once the dust clears a little bit about how to then allocate those funds. And obviously one of the potential projects at least is continuing the lighting project.
So either with those funds or if there's any grant funding for shovel-ready projects, this one's shovel-ready as far as, yeah, okay. Mr. Rouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's also off the subject. I was kind of tiptoeing through the council agenda report about how the costs are broken down, design, construction contract. It has construction management costs, and it seems like each one of those projects is a different percentage relationship. So clearly this isn't like what you see out in the private sector as far as how things are built or home construction. How do you, is each project just that unique where the percentage doesn't have a relationship to what it's going to take to manage that project?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Rouse, it is a very difficult job managing projects these days. As you're fully aware, we award projects to the lowest bidder, which isn't necessarily the best idea all the time, but it's unfortunately the system we work within. And that typically is one of our biggest challenges with managing projects. You know, we write a very detailed plans and specs and adhere to the contractor, but you never know what you're going to get with each of the contractors. They each take a different angle. We have been getting some really low pricing, but the amount of time it takes to manage some of these projects can go up exponentially based on a contractor's approach to the project. So that's why you probably see some of the variation in some of these projects. You know, I'd also like to highlight, you know, some of like the bridge projects. Those are notorious for taking an enormous amount of staff time, and the you know, we often, of course, with our performance measures we look at every year, we're constantly looking at how we're doing with compared to other agencies, and there is a multi-agency benchmarking study that comes out every year where you have the city of Sacramento, the city of San Diego, San Jose, and we're looking at their soft costs, if you want to call them, for managing projects, construction management, and we're either right in there or way below them on stuff, because I feel like we're just a smaller city. We're able to get things done a lot easier, a lot less overhead, and you might see it some of those larger cities. But with the bridge projects, we were right in there with those, and you know, we're consistently making our performance measures when it comes to delivery of our projects.
Well, just looking at it from a standpoint of budgeting, it must be really problematic then to, I mean, these are completed projects, obviously, so we can get the the ex post facto. But if you try to budget for something without a plug percentage, you just have to wing it.
Councilmember Rouse, I think it does depend on the type of project. So as Josh has pointed out, we have a wide variety of types of projects that as a city we take on and manage. And so in a way you can look at categories within those types of projects as one of the markers. And we do our best job to try and forecast what costs are going to be, track and understand what's changing or what's affecting those costs, and then using this outside reference of, I believe it's the top 7, or it's a grouping of the top 7 cities within the state of Colorado or California that have been working on this benchmarking program for, I think it's close to 10 years now. It's been quite a while. So we use the tools that are available to us to try and make sure that we're staying in the right parameters, that we're able to evaluate our work in a reasonable way, and also just realize that our obligation is to be effectively managing the projects and be there when we need to be, and make sure that the outcome for the public is what it really needs to be.
Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This slide also comes back to, or reminds me also of a conversation that we had at the Sustainability Committee this last week, which I had forgot to put on my list of things to talk about. And that is, there are heroic efforts in the city being made to conserve electricity. And then you look at the likes of this, you were talking about the cost of it, we were talking about the cost of constructing it. But imagine the cost and how much energy will be required to run this machine. And so while there's real efforts being made to, and successful efforts being made to reduce the city's energy consumption, obviously the likes of this bumps up the benchmark to increase our demand on electricity and our need for that going forward. So that's another place where rates are going to be challenged, is needing to feed the energy needs and the management of this system.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Okay. So we'll move on to council member committee assignment reports. Is there any to report? Mr. Francisco?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At last week's monthly meeting of the Central Coast Water Authority, something that's pretty significant happened. This has actually been something that's been in the work since the late 1980s and has finally moved forward. As you know, we're a member of the Central Coast Water Authority, which is in turn a member unit of the State Water Project. And some pretty significant parts of the State Water Project are in terrible disrepair. And the Department of Water Resources, which is responsible for it, lacks the resources and the budget to really do anything about it. And so last week, the governor gave a directive to the Department of Water Resources to negotiate with all of the member units all over the state to transfer some or all of the maintenance and operations responsibilities to the member units and out of DWR, which is a huge, huge change, and I think it will be a very, very beneficial change for us.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I owe the council reports on 3 planning commission meetings. Also on sustainability, but I didn't bring my agenda with me, so I won't ask for a timeout on that till next week. But first of all, going back 3 planning commission sessions, a rezone and general plan amendment for the for 531 and West Alomar and 534 West Junipero received planning commission approval to go forward. This has to do with the change of use of the areas around Cottage Hospital, and this would head that property in the direction of being more supportive of the Cottage Hospital uses. You have in contrast to that, the various properties around St. Francis, which is heading in the other direction. So this net, that whole change of land use, you have a significant reduction in office and commercial type uses. So it was a split vote, but it was still moved forward. Next is the draft Santa Barbara Climate Action Plan was reviewed by the Planning Commission, and again, there was some interesting debate there with the notion that saddling new development with climate change changes or upgrades is just sort of the fingernail of the tip of the iceberg in our area. Obviously, existing development is the predominant cause of whatever effect is going on in our area, and so that's anyway. That conversation was being held, and I understand Council will be hearing a version of the Climate Action Plan at some point later in the fall. Yeah, in the next 45 days. And finally, a couple of interesting topics were discussed last week, and that has to do with the historic resources element has gotten a review. Mr. Bartlett reported there have been something like 21 or 22 subcommittee meetings on that, so it's a super vetted in the Santa Barbara tradition, and again, a split vote, as I understand, is coming forward. So again, in the super Santa Barbara tradition, but that will be coming forward to Council again this year sometime. Yeah. And finally, again, another super Santa Barbara topic: the average unit size density incentive program was also reviewed, and will be, and again with I believe that has split vote as well, and will be coming forward. Oh no, it's going to go back to the Planning Commission for another round of discussion. But that's one of the core element pieces, of course, of Plan Santa Barbara.
They've been busy. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We have a closed session to read out.
Item number 12, conference with labor negotiator.
And we won't have anything to report out, so we will adjourn from there. Thank you very much, and viva la fiesta.